Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group program this afternoon, or Family History Update. This is the 12th of January of 2021, a brand new year. And we hope that COVID isn't a major problem for all of you that are watching and for others or your families. Today, we want to talk about OurTimelinescom, showing lives in context. This is a free website which will demonstrate and show some information about and show you how to use it and give you the links to it and so on. Uh, there are notes and they're posted at that website at the bottom of the page there. And Gerhard usually sends out, he's hosting these for us. He usually sends out and puts on the chat for Zoom or on the comments for Facebook a PDF of where that is, but it's always available on that particular website, and we'll talk about that in more detail here in just a minute. This lesson today, the OurTimelinescom, the class is the same class that I'm doing and have already recorded for Roots Tech 221, Roots Tech Connect 221, they call it. If any of you have not registered for that, it's completely free this year, and it's completely virtual. And it's the dates are scheduled for February the 25th through the 27th, I believe it is. But then the program, I think it's 800 classes, I believe. They'll be online for about the next year. And so you'll be able to watch them even after the time period. And we're supposed to answer questions on there a time or two, et cetera. And I'll give you my email address, which is on all these things here if you need to contact me directly. This is a timeline. This is a custom timeline. That happens to be for my grandma, Anne Stafford Snow Condy. Anne Stafford was her name. She was born in England, and she married Erastus Beeman Snow. And then when he died, she married George Condy. And so this is an example of what we're going to show you how to generate. It generates all the stuff in there except this long yellow line that I put right there where I put born Walton, Derbyshire, England, from her birth year to age 81. She died at age 81. And so on. We'll show you how to do all this stuff, but that's a timeline, an example of it. On the left side, you see the years up and down here, and then you see these bar graphs that are the length of time that that event took or was in operation. The long yellow one there is the birth years, the birth year 1867 up to 1948 when my grandma died. And she died here in St. George and is buried here in St. George. We'll talk more about that in a minute here. An overview of the notes to show you what's in the notes and what the handout is. There's the link for the handout. If you just go to uvtag.org, that's Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group.org. Look for resources on there. You'll find resources. Don Snow's webpage. This is the complete link to get you there. On this webpage are all of my notes and the past notes for all the past classes and other information as well. There are links on there to all the recent videos as well, because we post these videos after we get the class live. It's on Zoom now. It's also being sent out on Facebook. And some of you may be watching on Facebook either now or later, but we're recording it with Zoom. Now, let's see, let me go back here. Before that, let me show you what these notes look like. I'm going to click on Alt Tab here and go over to right here. This is Don Snow's class notes page. This is that link where that link takes you to that you saw on there, and that Gerhard will post on there in a little bit. There's links to other web pages on here of other stuff that I've got, Freeware Corner articles that I write and different sorts of things. And then here's classes coming up, and here's the first one now. This is today, the 21st, the 12th of January of 2021, second Tuesday, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and it's OurTimelinescom. And these are links to the classes. 2 weeks from today, we'll be doing a class on this same Zoom number on searching your own computer, how to find stuff on your own computer. And then there's the information about the Roots Tech. Was that a question somebody had?
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. That was Laura making a comment. I'll be quiet.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to click on that Our Timelines. That takes you, I've already clicked on it. That takes you to this right here. This is the handout, OurTimelinescom, showing lives in context. I update these things on a regular basis. This was updated just yesterday when I discovered a couple of grammar typos. So I corrected them. Otherwise it's about the same as it has been for the last month or two on here. But when I teach the classes, I redo the notes to update them because stuff changes so fast on the internet. There's an abstract that'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing. Here's a welcome and introduction information and links. There's my email address again, and here's links to what we're going to be talking about and what the website is. We're going to be talking about Our Timelines website, and there's a link to it right there. So you can click. These are all hot links. So if you go to my page, instead of just the notes, you can actually click on it and it'll take you right there, but it's not hard to type in as well. Then down here we're going to talk about how you enter personal events in there to add your own stuff, because most of the stuff they've got already in there, but you can add up to 10 personal events. Then what do you do to save the chart? Because the charts are, I think they're really pretty and they're very helpful, and you can save it and post it on uh, put it on a place like Face or like Family Search for the person or something of that nature. And so that's on there. And then a few comments about the timelines and about using these particular ones, and then the conclusions. Okay, so that's the notes, and they're available there, and you can print them off or you can have them in hand so that you've got the information yourself. That's the overview of the notes. Okay, now here's the little bit about what we're doing and what's happening on this. And if there's OurTimelinescom, that usually gets you there. It's got a little bit more to it than that for the title, but if you just type that in most browsers, that will take you to it. It's a free website. They'd like donations, but they don't nag you for donations at all. And they update the thing, and the people that run it really deserve credit for putting out such a terrific free website and so helpful. It generates these bar graph timelines that we just showed you, and we'll show you how quickly it does that and how you can add your own text and information. All the different colors on there represent different types of events. So if it's a historical event, it's in one color. If it's a technological event, it's in another color. If it's a personal event, it's in that yellow, like I showed you the yellow bar for my grandma and so on. And so if you can keep track of what the colors are, of course, you don't need to know that, but it's helpful to see that they're different events. Some of them actually are underlined, which means they're links. And so you can actually click on those links and it'll take you to more information about that particular event. It shows the life of the individual in context. Or if you're looking for something like during what happened during a war, for example, the beginning to the end of the war, you can see what else happened during that war. It's very helpful. And it starts clear back in, I think they go back to about 1000 AD, and it's right up to the current time, to the year 2021. I'll show you some examples of that here in a minute. It may indicate to you as you look at it, if you're doing it for a particular individual, different types of records that you could look at or look for. For example, if you were looking for an individual, a male individual, and there was a war going on in that country during that time period, there may be military records. Or if there was a pandemic like the COVID pandemic now, the coronavirus, there may be some medical records and so on. This is the actual timelines, their website. When you click on it, and I just copied this right in directly, but just OurTimelinescom gets you there. But for some reason it adds this /index.shtml on the end of it, and I don't know why. You don't have to add that; it'll put it in there for you. Now, what I'd like to do is take a look at some examples and demos. So I'm going to go back to my web back here, and this is the notes in the handout. And if you look down right here, OurTimelines.com. It's item number 6 on here now. If I redo these notes, it might change numbers slightly. But right there is a link that you can click on, and I've already made sure that that works, and I've already got a tab opened up here. Here it is. This is what the web page looks like for the OurTimelines.com. Now, there's a lot of information on this site besides the timelines, but they give you some information to welcome here and some information about it and how they started it and what it does and all that sort of thing. Over here on the left side, you see a lot of menus. The top one is that home button. That'll always get you right back to this page. The second one is the one we're talking about today, where it says timeline. And that's the one we're going to look at. We're not going to look at these other items, but there's some stuff that you might want to take time and look at it because it's worthwhile to consider it. I clicked on that, click right there on timeline, and it takes you to this page of it. Create a timeline of 5 to 140 year span. Now, most people don't live 140 years, so that's not a problem on there. And they give you some tips and some ideas and other things to look for. Scroll down a little bit, and you'd see down here that they've already got Abraham Goodfellow in here, born 1618 and something. That's where you start. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe out that, and I'm going to put in my grandma, Ann Stafford Snow Condi. Okay, she's in there now. She was born in the year 1867, and she died in the year 1948. Okay, so all that's in there now. Whoops, I didn't get the 1948 in there for some reason. 1948, and hit enter, and that should go. Okay, I just hit enter. Let me go back there. I'll click the back arrow. Right underneath here, it says generate the timeline. If you just, I hit enter there when I got all that data in, and that took me right to this one. But that just click on that thing. That fast, it generates the timeline. And it says, see, it put this stuff up here, custom timeline for, I typed in that Ann Stafford Snow Condi, and I typed in the years that she was born and so on. But I didn't put any other information in except her birth and death years. And here's all the stuff that it generated. All of these things, the different colors mean different types of events. Like here in 1876, the telephone was invented by Bell and Latimer. In the wax cylinder for recordings, when she was notice it says at the end, she was age 9 there. She was age 10 when the wax cylinder recordings were coming in, and all this sort of thing. Electric light bulb, Edison perfected the light bulb when she was 12. Now, keep in mind that if the light bulbs weren't available then, and of course they weren't available for quite a while after that, she would have been, anytime she had to study or read, it would have been by candlelight or by lantern. And so you begin to see the life in the context of what would have happened and what they were would have been doing at the time. The first subway was invented. Let's see, that was in London, wasn't it? The first subway, I think it was the center line around London when she was 17. Of course, she was over here by that time. Motorcycle when she was 17. I can't imagine my grandma riding a motorcycle though. Anyway, you begin to see the information that was on here and all the sort of data that's in here. I'm just scrolling down on this thing, and it goes right on down to 1948. Because that was the last year that I put in here for her. All this is the data that's in there for 1940 up to 1948, 1867 to 1948. In 1948, when she died, 33 1/3 RPM musical records, those vinyls came out. Notice that she was 81 years old when those were invented. Now, you can add information in here besides that to add up to 10 personal events. Now, let me do that by going back here. I'm going to click the back arrow. This is Chrome is the browser. Here's the back arrow. Now, you see all these boxes down here below. There's 10 different, those long white boxes. You can add your own data. Usually, you'd want to add personal data in here. So I'll add for Grandma, I'll say, the first one here, I'm going to put born 1867. And instead of putting a second, just the year 1867, so it would put a separate, just a little line, I'll put how long she lived, 1948. And then I'm going to write in here, born, born, Walton, Derbyshire, England. And the United Kingdom, it's a fancy name. Now, over here on the right, I can check the kind of event it is. This is a personal event, so I'll put the dot there in personal event. Now you see there's the color coding over there. So if you're entering some kind of a technological event, then click that, and then it'll color code it with that particular color. But the personal events are these yellow ones. Okay, and then I'll put down here, well, I'm not going to fill in all 10 of these, but I will put, she came in 1880, until her death, she came to the United States. 1948, I'll put emigrated, to the U.S., and then, and you can go back and correct this stuff if you don't get out of the program. She lived in Salt Lake City, and then she moved to St. George, and that's where she married my grandma. Lived in St. George, and that's all the space I've got. I can't add any more in there. So you got to abbreviate what you're doing with it. And now that's a personal event. So I'll click personal event there. Now I could fill in up to 10 different personal events. Like my dad was born in 1891, and my uncle Harold Snow, he was the temple president here for so long. He was born in, I think it was 1894 or 5, someplace along in there. Anyway, you can put that time period in here, and so on. Okay, now with those in there, I'm going to click here, generate the timeline, and now you notice that quickly it came back, and now it has the timeline with the yellow bar in here of about her particular life. So she was born in Walton, Derbyshire, England from her birth year, and she lived to age 81. And then down here, further down, there's where she immigrated in 1880. She immigrated to the U.S. and lived in St. George from age 13. She emigrated at age 13 to 81. Very helpful to have these years on here too. And then you can see how old she was. I didn't enter it, but you could put my dad when he was born, and other relatives. Up to 10 events in here. I wish you could put in more than 10 events, but that's what the limit is on there. There's a couple of ways around that 10 limitation thing. If you know enough about the HTML, that's the color, the language that this stuff is written in to show up on browsers, then you could enter more data yourself. But that would be tricky, and most of us don't know enough about that to do it. So a couple of other ideas that have occurred to me. One is you could make timelines of the different parts of their life. So you could do a birth to marriage, for example, and then marriage to middle age. And that would include the kids when they were born and so on. And then after that, they'd be 3 separate timelines, and they wouldn't all be in one, but it would be at least you could enter more than the 10 pieces of information. Anyway, you can see the 2 pieces I entered, that the 2 yellow bars here. Now you see that's the reason for entering the birth year and the death year is so that long yellow bar will be there. If I enter just 1867 and 1867 for the years, then I'd have just a little narrow bar like these other events that occurred at a particular time. But for me, it's helpful to show the length of time that when that occurred and about what time period of her life she was, how old she lived to, and when she got married, and when she, etc. So it tells you the details. So after my grandpa died, she was married, I think, 15 years to Erastus Beeman Snow, and that's Laura and Quilden Howard. They're on here with us today. That's their relative. It gives you the information, and then she married George Conde after that, and so on. Okay, now let's do another example. I'm going to go back here and show you some of the current, what's on there currently. Some of you who are old enough remember back to World War II, and I remember it. Rosie the Riveter. I'm gonna. Back in World War II, all the men were in the military, so they were out fighting, but all the women were working in these defense factories. So I put in here Rosie the Riveter, and I'll put let's see. Well, I'll make up a date here. She was born, I'll say, in 1830 or 1930. And I'll put the current year in here because I want to show you the current data that is in here. 2021 is the current year. Okay, and generate a timeline. Now, see, I can get rid of these things. So let me take these out of here because I don't want those to show up in this. I guess I should cleared the form. That's what I should have done. That's a simple thing to do. To clear I clicked that, cleared the form over here, but now I got to retype this stuff here. Rosie. Oh gosh. Right there. And then I'll put it all in caps. That was the nickname. In fact, you looked at, you see posters back from World War II of Rosie the River, 1930, and then the date here of 2021, the year 2021. Okay, generate the timeline. Now I won't put any more data in there on that. Okay, here's a custom timeline for Rosie the River from 1830 on. Now, World War II, the U.S. was in it from 1941 to 45, and so that's over here. There it is right there. Well, that's the Manhattan Project. There it is, World War II on there from in that particular blog. But what I want to show you is some of the stuff that how up to date this thing is. I'm scrolling down here to the bottom. Okay, here's the bottom. Okay, in 2019, COVID pandemic, when Rosie was 89. U.S. In 2019, President Trump imposed the December the 8th something when she was 89. The details on here. Facebook got fined $5 billion for doing something by the FTC. This is current stuff on here. The COVID pandemic in 2020, the COVID pandemic, and look at this, 2021, Joseph Biden, President of the United States, from her age, well, from her age, whatever it is, I can't even tell you until the age 91. It goes right up to the current stuff. So they keep this thing updated. And you can add other events in here if you want to on different sorts of things. But it does give you information on here. Now, the next question on the notes is, once you've generated one of these things, I'll go back up the top, how do you save the darn thing? Because if you don't want to generate it each time, though it's pretty fast to generate, but if you want to save it to post on Family Search or something, you got to make some sort of a PDF copy. Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. You'd think that by right-clicking, over here, here's the cursor. If I right-click and go down to print here, there's a print thing now in Windows 10, print to PDF. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. It works to save it in PDF, but it doesn't have all these colors on it. And I like the colors. I think they're pretty. It'll save it. And there's ways that you can make it black and white for printing it, and so on. So I've tried 2 or 3 different things to save it. And one of the simplest things is I'll show you 2 different ways quickly here. One is I'm going to click down here on the bottom of my screen. I've opened up Fast Stone Capture. Now, you've heard me talk about this before. It's a shareware program. The old version, the last freeware version, was 5 point something. That might still work. I haven't tried it because I started paying for it. Yeah, it's a one-shot pay for about, I think it's $20. And I've been using it now for years, and I really like it. And it does a scrolling screen. And very few of the screenshot programs do. You see up here on this thing, if you can see up to the right where I'm circling around there, there's an arrow down. It looks like a ladder. I'm going to click on that thing. That's the scrolling screen. And now as I move the cursor around, notice there's a, maybe you can't see it, but there's a red line around there. Now the red line is around this whole thing. I'm going to click and it's going down, it's scrolling down, and it's recording that whole thing for me. It's making a PDF copy of this scrolling screen. And I've actually used this program and scrolled through 70 or 80 pages to record it. This is only about 3 or 4 pages long, but it will scroll down and then save it in any way I want. Now, I don't know whether you heard it. I heard a little click. It's now going to save it. I can save it on the desktop. And here's the information. Now you can save it in various ways. I'll save it as a PDF. I'll just put a timeline, and then well, I better, and then I'll delete this afterwards. I'll click save. Now I've got a copy of that thing saved. That will, if I click on I'll show you. If I hold down the Windows key and close this, it saved it right there. That's this thing. It looks just like a browser, but it says timeline. If I double click, it'll open this. There's that timeline I just saved, Rosie the Riveter. Notice that where it says it's reading this from my C drive user desktop. Here's the whole thing with all the colors and so on. So it saved it on here. Now it didn't save it as a, well, this, let's see, pardon me. I'm getting ahead of myself here. This saved it with a different process. I jumped ahead there because we're running out of time here. It did save it as a PDF, but what I just showed you was the other way of saving it. It's all described in the notes on there. The other way of saving it is to go to right click and go down here to where it says save as. You see this? See, there's the print, and this is the thing that doesn't work right. It saves it, but it doesn't save it with the colors. Save as. If I click the save as, it opens up this thing, and now I can save it. Now it gives it a name here. I'm going to save it onto the desktop, and it's going to save it as a web page complete with all the stuff. And so I'm going to click save. And it's already on there once. So yeah, click it. This is the thing I just showed you. So there's 2 ways to save it. One way is to use this thing that I don't know whether you can see this. I hope you can. It's a box, a floating box up in the upper right-hand corner. That's Fast Stone Capture. And I did the scrolling window save on that. The other way to save it is by saving it by right-clicking and save as. Not print, because the print doesn't do a good job. Try it and see what happens. Now, it occurred to me about a couple hours ago, I haven't tried this with other browsers. This is the Chrome browser. It may be that other browsers, whether it's Firefox or even some of the other, or Opera, some of the other browsers, they're all free, might work, and it might save it correctly with the PDF on that. I don't know, but I haven't tried that. Okay, now that takes care of actually demonstrating some of the information about this and our timelines and generating it, personal events on there, saving the chart. There's more on here on saving the chart, but the details are there. Some comments here at the last minute, different uses of these timelines. If you're going to save it and post it somewhere, be sure you give the people credit. OurTimelinescom. They've got a little box in there that tells you something about how to do that, so that because it's a wonderful website and it's really worthwhile and we appreciate them doing it for us. You can save this in various ways and use it in various ways. The one thing I have noticed is that item 23, for people who were born near the end of the year, you may need to enter their birth year as the next year so that the events show up correctly. What I discovered that by typing in Joseph Smith's name, who was born in December 23rd of 1805, and then it says when his first vision, when you type in the first vision in 1820, it says that happened when he was age 15, and he was 14 when that occurred. And it has to do with probably the time period when what part of the year they use for determining what that event is. And I haven't found any way to change that. So, but if you enter his birth year as instead of 18, let's see, he was born 1805. If you enter 1806, no, yeah, I guess I've got that spelled wrong. If you enter his birth year as 1806, then it gives you the right time period on that. Okay. Anyway, lots of things you can do with it, and lots of stuff that can be used for. Now, let me go back to. Let me stop sharing my screen. Where is the stop share? There's the stop share, and get back and see if you have any questions. Does anybody have a question or a comment? We talked about how long to run these classes, and I've been doing them for try to keep them within a half an hour. But then somebody said, well, what about questions afterwards? So if you got questions, go ahead and ask them.
I have a question.
Okay.
I used this a long time ago in Los Angeles, but I haven't used it since then. And I thought it was gone, but it's always been there, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know how they support them. So they ask for donations, but they're not really naggy about it.
No. And then I remember I put in my grandfather, and they gave all the American, but he was not here in the United States. So this is mostly for people that lived in the United States.
Well, no, not necessarily. No, notice that the events in there, it talks about England, and it talks about the
I saw
War.
it.
It talks about all the stuff.
Yeah, I saw it. You just have to go through and maybe filter whatever you want.
It's world events. So it's written by people here in the U.S. So they talk about when every state was entered the Union and so on. But it also has a lot of information about foreign countries.
I saw that, but it's still mostly for Americans, and which is good. You know, this will be helpful. I think I will show that to them when I teach my class on Wednesday. If I have a chance to do that. And so, because this is a nice thing to know.
Yes.
It is a wonderful program. And
it's free, completely free.
Yeah, it's free. But it gives you so much information. I remember, I think there was something in it I didn't like, and I'd never used it again. And
I've had a couple of things I don't like in there, but
yeah.
But I still use it.
Well, you just have to grin and bear it, and use it for what it's worth and what you want. But I remember there was something that to me was false information, was not right, and so I stopped using it.
Yeah, there is some false information I've discovered too, and they don't for some reason they don't take it out.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, I'm glad you gave that class. It's a wonderful program.
Any other questions or comments? Now I've got just a little bit more. I'll go back and share my screen here again in a second. But if any other comments or questions?
Don, can you take out some of the historical events that they have if you're not interested in those?
If you know enough about HTML, you can. And it's not too hard to do that. That's exactly what I have done in a couple of places. I have generated them, and I've dropped out a couple of the things that I don't think I want in there on it. And so it can be done, but you need to know a little bit about HTML. Is just computer jargon for hypertext markup language. It's the language that this stuff is written on that shows up on web pages. Gerhard Roof, our host to this tonight, this afternoon, gave me 3 classes on this. When was it, Gerhard? 15 years ago?
Something like that.
Something like that. He's the one that got me started on it. And so I do my website ever since then now because of Gerhard's help in getting it going and learning the stuff. And I wish I knew more about it. Any other questions? let me go back and share my screen again to finish up then. Okay, we're back in here. Let me get back to the PowerPoint. Actually, it's not a PowerPoint. It's an Impress. I'm using the free thing. That's examples and demos on here. Here's the summary. We've talked about OurTimelinescom, free website for timelines. It has world events from 1000 AD on. And we've talked about how to make and how to save the charts, and we've shown you some examples on it. And then we had some questions and comments, and there's my email address. If any of you, by the way, if any of you would like to be on my class email lists, I've got two lists. One I send out a few days before the class, and another one I send out last minute stuff just within a few minutes before the class. That's a last minute invitation on Zoom. There's my email address. Send me a note and I'll be glad to add you to the lists on there. And so that takes care of OurTimelinescom, showing lives in context. And the notes are online and will be updated at other times and so on there. Thank you very much, all of you, for watching. I appreciate your being with us today.